Okay, we are now live.
Excellent, Jai. So
Right.
let's get things going.
Okay, let me see.
I think what we've been discussing has been catching on, a lot of things we are discussing that Prabhupada Is the Acharya, bypassing the G word, it clears up a lot of misconceptions people have just by using the term, guru. People have emotional reactions,
I agree with you. We need to introduce such ideas, and then we need to let them mull them over, and then we introduce more ideas depending on where they're at. But they're coming from a dark pit of consciousness and of being victims of the GBC or being hating Iskcon and stuff like that. So we have to clear things up.
Yeah, it's very hard for people who have learned the wrong way to learn the proper way. That's something I've discovered in myself, in myself and in the world. That's the way it works.
But we can't snap our fingers. We present the truth, and they can fight it and disagree with it and ignore it and say we're wrong, but they can't forget it.
Yeah.
And they gradually have to come to it eventually. I mean, we have to understand that people are eventually going to turn to the truth. Not only people, but jivas have to eventually turn to the truth for the simple reason that they're jivas. The truth is they're part and parcel of Krishna. So they can fight it, all the material stuff that they want, but in the end they have to surrender.
What's that sound coming from?
I don't know.
Mute Mahaprabhu. It's probably Mahaprabhu.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry. Hare Krishna.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so shall we read this essay that Narayan wrote?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay,
who wants the one that I recommended?
The one from today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, give it a read.
Mohit, do you want to read?
Go ahead, Mataji. No, not this time. Go ahead. Thank you for asking, Haribol.
Okay, basically the GBC murdered Srila Prabhupada, and when they failed to replace him with themselves, they began to take ordinary sannyasis and make them into gurus to distract from Srila Prabhupada being the self-effulgent Acharya for 10,000 years of future Iskcon. They stole Iskcon from Srila Prabhupada only 52 years ago, and they are desperately clutching at straws to keep their grasp on the Iskcon that they stole from Srila Prabhupada. 52 years is not a large part of 10,000 years, and they show the symptoms of complete failure within 10 or 20 more years. Iskcon belongs to Lord Krishna, not those who murdered Srila Prabhupada only 40 years ago. Lord Krishna is alive. Iskcon belongs to Lord Krishna. As Krishna's eternal associate, Srila Prabhupada is eternally self-effulgent and alive. The unelected GBC who murdered Srila Prabhupada to take his place for mere money and power are not eternal. They are a cancer to be surgically removed from Iskcon's otherwise healthy body. Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, and Iskcon will then effulgently deliver the fallen conditioned jivas for the next 10,000 years.
Jai.
There's more to it than that, isn't there?
No, that's it.
Can you project it back again? I'd like to see something there.
Sure.
Let's see. We're up. Self-effulgent. There's some part about sannyasis. Oh yeah, take ordinary sannyasis and make them into gurus. So what's the problem with taking sannyasis, ordinary sannyasis, and making them into gurus?
What are you going to?
What's the problem with that?
What is the problem with taking ordinary sannyasis and making them into gurus?
Yes.
What is wrong with Prabhupada as the source of spiritual knowledge? I mean, are we implying?
What did you say? It cut out.
Oh, what is the problem with Prabhupada being the source of our spiritual knowledge to the degree that when we talk about kirtan and sankirtan, not harinam, which was term invented by Rameshwar later, that what's wrong with Prabhupada being the person who is the spiritual master of Iskcon? What do you need the gurus for? Do you want them to perform weddings? What do you want them to do? You see what I mean? So Mohit, was that you?
No, that was me.
No, Haribol. Not me, Prabhu.
Ramachandra?
Ramachandra, yes. Yes.
So the question is, what's the harm of Prabhupada with his sound vibration, with his teachings, with his presence? I mean, it's sort of like having Jesus alive and well on the internet. What's wrong with, why do we need a priest to represent a pure devotee of the Lord? Unless we want to become like the Catholics, where the priest is the means of collecting money and power for the organization without any regard whatsoever for the original teachings or the example. I mean, it's not as though that we are without Prabhupada's form and without his sound vibration. It's all recorded. It's made into movies. Why can't he be the leader of the movement that he brought down from Krishna Loka? Why do we need people on earth to do that for him?
But how about the management? How about the management aspect of it? Well,
management?
Yes.
Or are gurus supposed to be managers?
No. I'm saying Prabhupada the Guru. Now there's a society that Prabhupada created. How would that be managed?
And he wanted the temples to, the key is something that people simply can't or don't want to or don't think is important, but they neglect this point. And the point is that Srila Prabhupada wanted each Iskcon temple to be individually incorporated. Now, if he did that, supposing an elected GBC comes to your temple that you incorporated and said, well, there's five different temples in this area. I'm going to take over all of them with my authority as GBC. And the temple president can say, it's an individually incorporated temple. You can't take it over. And then the temple plus GBC says, then what do you want me to do for you? You want me to serve your needs as a senior godbrother? And the temple president said, that would be nice. Why not serve our needs as a senior godbrother? Why do you have to be in charge of the money and power and controlling each and every temple? So that's why they have to be individual. That way the temple president is the final authority on each temple. If there are problems that the temple president decides to go to some other belief, in the name of Iskcon, then there has to be a mechanism to get the name Iskcon back so that he can do what he wants to do without claiming to represent Iskcon. But unless that happens, it's just a temple trying to become excellent and needing some guidance from people who have made their temple more excellent than the one that you're talking about. I used the example when I went to Detroit, a whole bunch of initiated devotees, but they didn't have a temple. They just had a house. A box in the corner, cardboard box with a cloth over it, picture of Prabhupada, picture of Krishna, and a incense holder to hold incense. When I left, a month and a half later, I had carved a set of Jagannath deities, built an altar, decorated the temple. The devotees were all wearing dhotis and saris. They had learned how to do the artik with 5 articles, including ghee lamps and stuff like that, which they hadn't known before. And I showed them how to go out on Sankirtan, chanting in the streets, collect money, distributing books and stuff like that. So I did what a GBC would have done, was supposed to do a year later. That was 1969. And a year later, in 1970, that's what the GBC was supposed to do. But they refused. They wanted to be in charge. They didn't want to serve. Being in charge means they wanted to control, not facilitate service to Krishna. So all I can say is, would anyone have chosen that if they had known that's where everything was headed? And I personally have a doubt that they would. But the GBC didn't give them an option. So they took all the temples and made them into one global corporation, which means they were subject to everything. Politics, lawsuits, government control, and the temple presidents began to have little or no power at all because the GBC determined what they were to do. The GBC controlled numbers of temples. They weren't elected. So you couldn't get rid of them. Does that answer your question at all? Hello?
Ramachandra Prabhu is calling you, Haribol. I guess Prabhu is left. Some network issue.
Who left?
Ramachandra Prabhu.
Oh, I see. Anyhow, did you hear the answer that I gave to his question?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Okay.
It's correct in every sense, Prabhu. Because your point is always being said by Prabhupada, right? That every temple should be a separate legal entity, have his own donations, make their own donations, and build a temple.
Yeah.
Help is needed. Help the bigger
Now, if they need
That's
help doing that, a bunch of GBCs can get together and help them arrange a bigger loan.
Exactly.
Or any sort of thing like that to do what they want to do, as long as it's something that the GBCs think that they ought to do.
Exactly.
But the drive has to come from the temple presidents, not from the GBC.
Yeah, they can give loans, help them, but the legal entity should be separate temples. That's what Prabhupada said. Yeah.
Meaning legally separate. That means no GBC can come in and saying, oh, you're Iskcon, I'm controlling this Iskcon.
Exactly. Prabhupada never wanted centralization in the organization. He always wanted independency for every temple. Yeah. GBC can guide them, not own the temple. Yeah.
Exactly.
Rupamajari Mataji, can you call Ramachandra Prabhu?
I'm sorry? He's driving, I think.
Acha. ठीक है.
Yeah, he's driving right now.
Got it. Okay.
So he'll join us as he can.
Okay.
He's going
What are they reading?
he's going to work in a distant location.
Okay, bro.
So here we are.
Very well.
So Rupa,
Yeah.
so that quote, that thing that you read had two sections to it, right?
Let me see. No, it just had, oh yeah, it did have a second section.
So why don't we read that, and then why not go over it line by line and discuss it and get the import, to agree with it or disagree with one or the other.
Okay. Any problem with the accurate analysis above? Get used to the fact that initiations into Iskcon can take place without feeble, unrealized gurus performing the ceremony. I request that the term guru be eliminated from all of our discourses. Srila Prabhupada is eternal, alive, and quite capable of leading the human race to spiritual perfection over the remaining 10,000 years of the golden age of Kali. The murderous GBC appointed gurus would have no potency, and if they did, the GBC would not have appointed them. They are the equivalent of Catholic priests, nothing more. The priest ends up being worshipped, not the descended Acharya who came from Krishna Loka to create and maintain Iskcon. Jeev Jago, wake up.
So when I go over it and discuss the point by point.
Okay.
Or do you want to go over the first one first and then lead into this one point by point?
It's up to you.
Well, why not go over the first one first, since that one leads to this one?
Okay.
There's actually a third one, which I didn't send, which was also a good one, but it's too late to do that.
Okay. Basically, the GBC murdered Srila Prabhupada, and when they failed to replace him with themselves, they began to take ordinary sannyasis and make them into gurus to distract from Srila Prabhupada being the self-effulgent Acharya for 10,000 years of future Iskcon.
Okay, why don't we go over that carefully, maybe piece by piece.
Okay, now it's just you, me, and Mohit.
Yeah, Ramachandra is driving, right?
Yeah.
Was there anyone else besides Ramachandra?
Yeah. Mahaprabhu.
Oh, Mahaprabhu is not there?
He left.
I wonder why. Okay, well, let's keep going. So that's the top one? That's the top one you've got up?
Yeah.
Okay, so what can we understand from this? We say basically the GBC murdered Srila Prabhupada. When that failed to replace him with themselves, they began to take ordinary sannyasis and make them into gurus to distract from Srila Prabhupada being the self-effulgent Acharya for 10,000 years of future Iskcon. Well, I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory, isn't it? They poisoned him because they thought that if they didn't poison him, he might appoint somebody else to be acharyas, and they would rather kill him than see that happen. Now, but they'd already decided that they, as the 11 zones, GBC zones, were entitled to be the successor gurus. And they didn't want Srila Prabhupada to change anything or say anything that would just take away that expectation from them. So to solve that problem, they poisoned him.
Right.
And I like to point out that it's very typical when grandfather dies, people are much less concerned as to if he was poisoned or not, as to who gets the goodies that he left behind. What does the will say? And if the will doesn't give me what I want, what can I do to defeat the will so I can get what I want? Ultimately, it's all about getting things that I didn't earn or work for, right?
Right.
So it's just as old as time itself. If you read, if you look into the Weird History or channel or all those channels, it's nothing but the repeated murder of one king coming in, murdering everybody, taking that guy's wife, then having children with her, then him being defeated and murdered also. I mean, it's just one murder after another to create powerful kingdoms.
Okay, we have Vinayak Sharma that just entered.
Jai Vinayak Sharma, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, he's muted.
Why is he muted?
I don't know.
Okay. Are you telling him, did you tell him that he's muted?
Vinayak, can you unmute yourself?
Or do you just want to listen?
I guess he just wants to listen.
As far as I know, he's at work. So there's limits as to what he can do while he's at work. Is my image on the screen, Rupa?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Oh, because I can't see it.
Yeah.
I see. I was hoping that when the page was up, that was all that could be seen.
It might be because I'm sharing my screen that you can't see it.
Oh. Okay, so what do we do next?
Do you want to read the next section of your essay?
Sure. Okay, they stole Iskcon from Srila Prabhupada only 52 years ago, and they are desperately clutching at straws to keep their grasp on the Iskcon that they stole from Srila Prabhupada. Now, when we say they stole it 52 years ago, in our lifespans, you see, supposing we were mice, that's a long time. Supposing we were tortoises, that's not such a long time. But from the point of view of history, of 10,000 years of the golden age of Kali, 52 years is barely measurable. Seems big to us now, here and now, because we're still alive in our present bodies that live up to 100 years or 80 years or 90 years or whatever they live to be. But if we measure Prabhupada's movement in terms of our own lifespan, that means our only interest in joining Iskcon was that at the end of this lifetime, we're going to go back to Godhead. And that after that, the Iskcon movement can go to hell because I'm saved, so who cares about anybody else? I honestly say that that is not a very good strategy. It's not a very realistic strategy. We have to be prepared to deliver the fallen souls. Are we so ungrateful that we're given access to Krishna Loka from Malacha condition to Krishna Loka condition and do nothing for anybody else? Oh, we have temple programs, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, but this is gradually becoming Hinduized, and this is gradually becoming just a social thing. And you can see that with the danger of atomic war, with the danger of shortages in the food supply, devotees who are quite comfy and complacent are getting alarmed and are beginning to talk. I've seen so many sites are beginning to talk about the necessity of farm communities. And they're putting up quotes from Prabhupada talking about farm communities. So you can see the complacency that set in after Prabhupada's murder, and that everybody could just be comfy with a little comfy guru, isn't working out. Okay. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, so I write the next page part. Does anyone want to discuss Mohit or Vinayak or Rupa? Can you discuss that passage? They stole this gun from Prabhupada only 52 years ago. So what do you think of that? It's a significant factor in our own lifespan, correct?
Right.
But is it a significant factor in 500, 5,000, or 10,000 years?
No, it's just a little blip in the frying pan.
Yeah. And as time goes, after 5,000 years, people may remember it as a time of betrayal of Prabhupada. And it will be just like in the Bible, thousands of years old, and there's so many things that are there that are remembered, even though they're small items. So it could be those 52 years will be remembered because of the treachery that was involved by the treacherous people, disciples, who represented the sinister movement within our society that Prabhupada repeatedly discussed. Okay, what's next?
52 years is not a large part of 10,000 years, and they show the symptoms of complete failure within 10 or 20 years.
Okay, can you explain?
Well, like you were just saying, it's just a brief span of time in the grand scheme of things. And
So why is it having so much impact now?
Because people are waking up and seeing that there's something rotten in the state of Denmark.
Probably the state of Denmark is one of the few places where something is not rotten. Just kidding. But so what do you think about that? What do you think about the impact of those 52 years on 10,000 years? What will it take to sort it out, to rectify it?
Joining at Prabhupada's feet.
In what capacity?
What do you mean, in what capacity?
Well, what did you just say? Joining at Prabhupada's feet?
Yeah.
Oh, and who would Prabhupada be to the people joining at his feet?
Sorry, say that again.
Who would Prabhupada be to the people joining at his feet?
Acharya.
That's the significant point. Joining at his feet, you can join at the feet of a replacement guru too, can't you?
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
That Prabhupada is the deliverer.
Well, they think the gurus are deliverers too, don't they? What's the difference between Prabhupada being the deliverer and the gurus being deliverers?
Prabhupada's the real one.
By meaning what?
He's the one who can actually deliver.
Well, they think that the other Iskcon gurus can actually deliver also.
Can you just say what you're thinking? Because I'm not getting it.
Well, I'm trying to suggest what is the significant difference between Prabhupada and the Iskcon gurus?
He's a pure devotee.
Which means
He's empowered
by,
Krishna.
okay, he's a pure devotee. Is that the same as an Uttama Adhikari?
Yes.
So where do the Uttama Adhikaris reside?
Where do they reside?
Yes.
In Krishna Loka.
Okay. Do any of the replacement gurus reside in Krishna Loka?
No.
So that's a difference right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So are the replacement gurus in their rasas with Krishna?
No.
How do you know?
They don't have his potency.
Krishna's potency? Only Krishna has Krishna's potency.
No, they don't have Prabhupada's potency.
Well, they think they do. So let's go on to the next one.
Iskcon belongs to Lord Krishna, not those who murdered Srila Prabhupada only 40 years ago.
Okay. This is a difficulty because people think Iskcon was, well, a devotee in India who's busy trying to reform Iskcon is thinking that the Iskcon that Iskcon was created 60 years ago, 55 years ago, to engage hippies. And that Iskcon, the term Iskcon, could be replaced with some other term now that we have more access to the Vedas. But I take the different view. I take the view that Iskcon is brought by the concept and term and words of Iskcon were created by Lord Krishna and handed to the world through Srila Prabhupada. And that as such, Iskcon as such is meant to last until the end of the 10,000 years of the golden age of Kali. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So thinking of Iskcon as a temporary designation puts people in a very bad position in their next lives. Huh? Supposing Iskcon vanishes in this lifetime, because it was just a hippie thing. So how are you going to get to Krishna Loka in your next lifetime, assuming you didn't go back to Godhead in this lifetime? Which is a safe assumption. You see what I'm saying?
I'm not quite following.
How will you recognize? Suppose you take another birth and you want spiritual life. And Prabhupada isn't the Acharya. There's an organization called something other than Iskcon. How will you know if that's going to take you back to Godhead, continuing from your birth that you were a member of Iskcon?
There's no guarantee.
Well, no, because that's why the term Iskcon needs to be continued, not just for the foreseeable future, unless you've got good eyesight, but the foreseeable future is to go to the end of 10,000 years. Iskcon will be recognizable by people that took birth in Iskcon or took birth and took membership of Iskcon or joined Iskcon, no matter what century or millennium in the future they choose to do that. So it seems to me that it is absolutely vital that Iskcon be the term that is used for the next 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how will people know what it is? Suppose it goes by a completely different name. Suppose it goes by Gaudiya Math. Well, nobody's going to join Gaudiya Math if they were members of Iskcon. You see, because it was a transformation, a transition between Gaudiya Math and Iskcon that made deliverance of millions of people possible. And there's no guru that's going to come along and make that more possible than Prabhupada already did when he created Iskcon in New York. Okay, what's the next paragraph?
Lord Krishna is alive. Iskcon belongs to Lord Krishna.
Keep going.
As Krishna's eternal associate, Srila Prabhupada is eternally self-effulgent and alive.
Okay, that raises a big question. Is Prabhupada a living guru or a dead guru? And of course, Thakur Bhaktivinoda said, he reasons ill who say Vaishnavas die when thou art living still and sound. Now that was back before tape recorders that it was said. So I wonder where the sound comes in. But in the case of Srila, maybe from just what they wrote being vibrated by somebody who reads it out loud. But in any event, in this case, it's literal. We have recordings of Prabhupada. I mean, can you imagine there being any reason why a temple would have kirtans different than those of Prabhupada, classes different than those of Prabhupada, dancing different than that of Prabhupada? Why would they differ from the angel that came from Krishna Loka? Unless they were selling out to politicians who wanted to do what the Catholic Church did, make a big Catholic GBC to dominate the people that really emotionally responded to Jesus. They thought Jesus was wonderful, so the church says, oh, you do you? Okay, we control Jesus, your access to Jesus, so now do what we say and you'll get Jesus. But they don't. How many people that are following Jesus have become saintly?
Not many.
No. And basically the ones they have that have actually been made into Catholic saints had to be put to death by the Catholic Church first before they could become saints.
Right.
Nobody ever recognized a saint who was alive. And when it came to Martin Luther, he was lucky to escape with his life. He not only wasn't made a saint, he was made a pariah. But people picked up his philosophy of Protestant philosophy because it included the common man. It didn't just go for the hierarchy of the Catholic GBC.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's keep going.
The unelected GBC who murdered Srila Prabhupada to take his place for mere money and power are not eternal. They are a cancer to be surgically removed from Iskcon's otherwise healthy body.
Okay, supposing we did that to the Catholic Church, if we took the Catholic GBC called the Vatican away from Christianity, away from Catholicism, and simply let Jesus' teachings be the predominant teaching of the church, where Jesus would speak for himself and effulgently, I'm saying this on Easter Sunday, that Jesus would represent himself as a speaker in behalf of God. You see, so it's the same old, same old. The question is, how long are we going to let that go on? Now, the actual fact is that I would say still most of the leaders of Iskcon were former Catholics. Some people claim that only 3 of the 11 so-called successor gurus were Catholics. I contend that there were 6. But that can easily be resolved. All a person has to do is look up their personal histories. And I actually have done that. And I don't know who they think are Jews besides the 4 that were Jewish. Bhagavan, Rameshwar, Kridananda, and who's the 4th one?
Say it again.
Who are the 4 Jewish GBCs?
Kamal, Hridayananda,
Yeah, Kamal. Yeah, go ahead.
Rameshwar, and
Bhagavan.
Bhagavan.
That's 4. Now, can you think of 3 more that were Jews?
Jayadwaita.
Was he an original GBC on that list?
No.
So he doesn't count. I'm talking about the 11.
There's only 4.
Who? 4 what? Jews.
4 Jews, yeah.
And who were the Catholics?
Bhavananda, Jayapataka, Satsru.
Jayatirtha? Huh?
I thought Jayatirtha was a Baptist.
Jayatirtha? No, that was Kirtananda's Baptist.
Oh, okay.
So who do you have? The Catholics?
On what document, the July 9th letter or the direction of management?
The July 9th letter.
Hold on.
Okay, Kirtananda was a Baptist, Satsvarup Catholic, Jayapataka Catholic, Bhavananda Catholic, Hansaduta Catholic, Rameshwar.
If you struggle to lose weight, you must see this.
Harikesh was Catholic, And Jaipatak and Jayatirtha was Catholic.
Okay, Satsarup, Jaipataka, Bhavananda, Hansaduta, Harikesh, and Jayatirtha.
Yeah. I know Jayatirtha was Catholic because he told me he was. His father was German, therefore his last name was Himmel, which means heaven in German. And his mother was an Arab, which doesn't really speak well for being Jewish. Muslim. So anyhow, I don't know where that idea that there were only 3 Catholics came from. Oh yeah, they said the person who said that came from Hansaduta. But I wonder who he counted as Catholics. I know that he was a Catholic. I don't think he was a Protestant. Jayapataka, I did some research. His ancestors came from a little German community in Wisconsin, I believe.
Hmm.
Bhavananda I knew quite well. He was a Lithuanian. The Lithuanians are particularly anti-Semitic. In fact, the Germans put the Lithuanians in charge of the death camps because they hated Jews to that degree.
Ronald Singh is back with us.
Hey, Harimal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So I just have a discussion point that I'd like to put it out there on the World Wide Web.
Please do.
So we have Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supreme Devotee. Then we have the Acharyas, which are Rupa Goswami, the 6 Goswamis. And then after that, we have more Acharyas. Then coming down to Gorkishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, then Srila Prabhupada, right?
Yeah.
So this is the disciplic succession.
Yeah, I like to call that a mini Sampradaya because it doesn't correspond entirely to coming down from Madhava. It's because you don't need it. The Sampradaya begins with Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya is Radha and Krishna. It doesn't get more Krishna than that. So Krishna begins the Sampradaya 500 years ago, and from that time, it comes down very quickly and very short with very few individuals over a few hundred years to our present situation. Go ahead.
Yes, then we have Srila Prabhupada coming in the Acharya Sampradaya, and then we have his disciples, meaning all the people who are in Iskcon.
Okay.
Right?
And your point is?
My point is that we can go directly to Srila Prabhupada. We can bypass, all these distractions they have created.
Bypass what?
Bypass the so-called, initiators and...
there are godbrothers. There are equals. We don't have to bypass them. We just rub shoulders with them.
Rub shoulders mean that...
they're equal. We are all equals.
Okay.
Now, if you have a sannyasi, you offer respect to him for his restraint and his celibacy. That doesn't make him a guru. That just makes him a sannyasi who has given up sex life.
Yeah, we would better hope so.
Yeah, assuming that he has, of course.
So this distractions being, I'm talking about the distractions which we have right now, meaning that what they have created. So
would you say the GBC has run out in front of Iskcon, waving puppets in their hands, saying, "This is the real Iskcon. This is the real Iskcon. Prabhupada is dead and gone. This is the real Iskcon."
Yeah.
If Prabhupada is dead and gone, He said, and we should know we murdered him. We know he's dead to God. We killed him with poison. Ha ha ha. And then they replaced him and distracted from him. They even did that during the time, the 7 years, they tried to distract from Prabhupada by changing his kirtans, changing everything about it, changing the dancing, changing the classes, changing the books. So go ahead.
So we're in a pretty good spot that we can go directly to Srila Prabhupada without any, hindrances.
How about, that means every resident on earth is we, right?
Yes. Anyone who wants to accept Krishna consciousness, yeah.
Well, everybody does. They just don't know how.
Yeah, that's another question. Everybody wants to accept it, but they don't know how. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and the reason that they don't know how is they don't know that they're a pure spirit soul, which is part and parcel of Krishna. If people all realized they were jivas, then they'd have no other objective than to surrender to Krishna.
right.
It's just that people don't think they're jivas. They think they are the bodies, and therefore they keep on struggling to make their body live as long as possible, that their children become king after them and all that stuff. I've read across a lot of the stuff of history. I've studied it before school, in school, after school, and now I bump into it all the time on the internet with stuff called weird history and stuff like that. It goes into great detail as to all the butchery that has been done. Oh yeah, and Smithsonian Magazine and the Anthropology Magazine, stuff like that. It all goes into great detail of how people would come into a city, murder everyone, rape all the women, kill all the children, take over, live there for 200, 300 years, then somebody would come and wipe them out. The weirdest part of it is that it doesn't seem that bothered them very much.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I've been recently studying. I mean, not studying, but looking into history. I was looking at all these great tribes that lived in America when the settlers came to America looking for gold, this and that. They killed them. They and took over their land. They did so many things. So this is what actually you mean, that
annihilated the bison.
Yeah, right. So this is.
And you know how they annihilated the bison big time? When Lincoln built the Transcontinental Railroad.
Yes.
Because they didn't allow bridges for the bison to migrate back and forth. Because it would take too much time. They were trying to win a contest.
So this is actual history, right? Of the exploitative nature.
History. Yeah,
exploitative nature.
It's badly recorded, generally speaking, very well recorded in a few well-sourced documentary books. Well, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. So in this case, this type of mentality is there in spiritual life too, and we can see it in our present society. Meaning Iskcon.
Well, Iskcon is an ideal. The members of Iskcon are ordinary human beings, Kanistadhikaris. They are fallible human beings that have accepted taking the spiritual path and who have renounced breaking the four regulative principles and who agree to read the Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada's books. That's all Iskcon is. It doesn't make the people of Iskcon saints. In fact, the people of Iskcon can hide their evil natures as much as they like, but as long as they keep on reading and studying and chanting their japa, they're gradually becoming purified. It doesn't give them any special status. It's not like they're being blessed by being in Iskcon. Being in Iskcon is a blessing if you take advantage of it. But if you don't take advantage of it, it's still a blessing, but it's if you don't take advantage of it, it's still a blessing because you'll take birth after birth in Iskcon as long as you don't fall down to the regulative principles. They're breaking the regulative principles. Go ahead.
So that being said, that these people are not really all that up to the mark, being Kanishta Adhikaris.
Nobody's up to the mark. A Kanishta Adhikari is not up to the mark. I mean, what is the mark for? Can you tell me what the mark for a Kanishta Adhikari is?
The 4 regulative principles.
Yes. Hello, you there?
He just left.
Yeah, he's driving. Okay, so 4 regulative principles. Ripa, you tell us, say, what is the standard of the Kanishta Adhikari? You already said 4 regulative principles. What else?
16 rounds.
Yeah. What else?
I don't know.
Let's say in a temple.
Following Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. Well, morning and evening classes and chanting Prabhupada's kirtan using Prabhupada's melodies.
Right.
I mean, is there any sane person that would join an organization created by a pure devotee of the Lord, descended from Krishna Loka, that would not follow his direct example by saying most insanely that there's no hard and fast rule for chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, meaning you can chant any goddamn melody that you want. That's not what no hard and fast rule means. No hard and fast rule means that you, who say there's no hard and fast rules, can chant Hare Krishna. But the hard and fast rules pertain to your qualification to be able to not commit a sin by chanting Hare Krishna. You won't go to hell by chanting Hare Krishna because it's no hard and fast rules. But in terms of how to chant, I mean, who's so stupid as to not chant like the pure devotee Acharya? Who's that stupid?
Well, there's apparently a lot of stupid people in Iskcon.
Why?
Because they've been taught wrongly.
By whom?
By their initiators.
By their initiators? Where did their initiators come from?
Huh?
Who appointed their initiators? Where did their initiators come from? Hello?
From the GBC.
And where did the GBC come from?
From the direction of management.
And did they obey the direction of management?
No.
Therefore, there is no GBC. There's people calling themselves the GBC that might be just as well the GBC of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
The GBC means that they are elected every 3 years for renewable terms by temple presidents. Unless that's their GBC is just words that they borrowed from the murder of Prabhupada. That has to be understood.
Yeah.
That will enable Iskcon to continue for 10,000 years. If the GBC is not elected, it'll do what it's doing now. How long has it taken to do it? 52 years. They've already turned Iskcon into a quagmire, into a mess, into a trembling pit of impurities. 52 years out of 10,000, that proves that what they're doing isn't the right thing to do. Wasn't what you say?
Yeah.
If they were what they were saying is the right thing to do, wouldn't Iskcon today be far more advanced and glorious than it was in 1970?
Yeah.
Just think, temple presidents calling on the GBC to help them open temples. Wouldn't that produce a lot of temples?
Yeah.
And if the GBCs come in and say, okay, we've helped you develop this temple, now you're in my zone. I will tell you what to do and I will control your temple. What will the temple president say?
Okay.
Huh?
They'll say okay.
Why? I'm talking
Because
about an elected GBC comes in and says, now that we've got your temple up and running, we're going to control your temple. And you say the GBC, the temple president would say, okay.
no, he would say no.
Why would he say no?
Because he has rights according to the direction of management.
That's so, but what other rights does he have that makes it impossible for the GBC to control his temple?
The fact that he'll be voted out.
No, aside from the GBC, what factor exists before the GBC or should have existed before the GBC that would make it impossible for the GBC to control his temple?
I don't know.
Have you ever heard that Prabhupada wanted each temple to be individually incorporated?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That they're independent.
Okay, and who controls the independent temple?
The temple president and the congregation.
Not the congregation, just the temple president. But how does he control? What gives him the control?
The individual incorporation.
Well, how does he get individual incorporation?
I don't know.
He applies for it. He takes the trouble to file papers incorporating Iskcon 22nd Avenue and 3rd Street as an individual temple. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So when the GBC comes in and say, we're going to control your temple, the temple president can say what?
No.
On what basis?
On the basis that they're autonomous.
On the basis of this is my temple and you can't take it over.
Yeah.
This is my Iskcon temple. I incorporated it. And they say, well, what happens if you decide to go somewhere else or do something else or you die? What happens to your temple? I can grant it to somebody else. Anywhere. In my temple or somewhere else. But they cannot take on more than one temple. They have to take on that one temple, not more than one temple. Are you beginning to see, Rupa Manjari, the incredible power that individual incorporation gives Iskcon temples?
Yeah.
Supposing like in Los Angeles, had they done that, there would probably be 3,000-4,000 temples right now in Los Angeles. Not a single one could be taken over by a GBC. Right?
Right.
But the GBC would be there to help them. And believe you me, if a guy starts a temple in his apartment or house, he's going to want help. Right? He wants to know how to set up the altar. He wants to know how to dress. He wants to know how to go and Sankirtan. He wants to know how to give class. He wants to know all these things. So that's what the GBC is supposed to do. Go there and help him get set up. And if he has problems, can the GBC come back? Yes, but only if invited. Or if the GBC says sees he's having trouble, he can call him up and say, look, it seems you're having trouble. Would you like me and 2 other GBCs to come and help you straighten it out? And if that temple president says, no, we want to worship Ramakrishna or Durga or something of that sort, then what? then you can say, okay, then you're going to have your right to call your temple Iskcon rescinded. And they'll be able to do that. You can rescind the right to have a temple, but you cannot control the temple if there's no reason to rescind it.
Mhm.
Do you see any flaw in that plan?
No,
And how many years do you think that plan could survive?
indefinitely,
Why?
because it keeps the power squarely with Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, because each person that opens a temple is a disciple of Prabhupada. Well, of course, that's not what the GBC wanted, was it? They wanted to be gurus, and then they wanted each temple to be their temple, and like Tamal's the guru of 20 temples, etc., like that. That's what they wanted. But Prabhupada didn't want that for himself. He wanted each temple to be independently incorporated, meaning that he would have zero control over a single temple. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The control that Prabhupada would have over a temple would be that the temple president, who organized the temple and incorporated it, would be his disciple. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the temple president is his disciple, then the temple president will obey Prabhupada as though he were representing Krishna. In other words, absolutely. Prabhupada is absolutely representing Krishna. The temple president will absolutely represent Prabhupada, knowing that by so doing, he's absolutely representing Krishna as well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what level the temple president is on. He can be a Kanista Adhikari or whatever Adhikari. But basically, temples are all Kanista Adhikari because they're the launching pad for spiritual life. You get to be you become a devout brahmachari. You see, the thing is, we thinking everybody's going to have their independent house and they're all going to be householders or whatever. But if the GBC had not taken over everything and eliminated the independent temples, the temples would have grown to such a degree that the majority of people in the temple would be brahmacharis and brahmacharinis. Why not? College students, why not? I mean, why would they suddenly get houses and Rolls Royces to drive? If they want to make spiritual advancement, they would become a brahmachari, brahmacharini, no?
Right.
So that means that you'd have temples full. When I say full, 50, 60, 70, 80 brahmacharis and brahmacharinis and sannyasis. Well, sannyasis would be traveling, moving around from temple to temple and place to place, preaching openly in the streets. And there would be Sankirtan. That would mean in Los Angeles, if you have that many devotees, you could have probably 500 or 1,000 Sankirtan parties on the streets every day. Tell me that would not have an effect on the consciousness of the population. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Would that have an effect on the consciousness of the population?
Yes.
So is it surprising that I say that the GBC are actually criminals guilty of the deaths of millions of people?
Yes.
Because they prevented people from becoming devotees in temples because they wanted everybody to become a devotee, to be their disciple, or when that didn't work out, they would appoint gurus, and then they would be, and they still control the temples just through the guru. Anything except them having direct access to Prabhupada, Prabhupada's sound vibration, Prabhupada's kirtan style, Prabhupada's dancing style, Prabhupada's unedited books. Anything except that. and we are still thinking the GBC had some status. And the only reason we think that is because Prabhupada didn't do what Jesus did, drive them out of the temple with whips. He didn't drive them out because they were building the movement. And if they had wanted to surrender to Prabhupada, they could have surrendered at any time. They could have said, Srila Prabhupada, maybe it's time for us to become elected GBC. But in 1970, the direction of management was there, ignored, as Bhagavat put it. And then in 1974, Prabhupada wrote a letter called the Topmost Urgency Letter. And in that Topmost Urgency Letter, he clearly stated that the direction of management must be followed. That's 4 years later. And he put in different things in that letter that devotees would have to obey, and they did obey, like having his name, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya, etc., in front of the temples. And he put those other things in because if they read they could say they never saw the letter. But if they obeyed the other two elements in the letter and ignored the direction of management, then it would be clear that they read the letter, chose to obey two of the provisions out of three, and refused to obey the direction of management. So it was a bigger conspiracy than just the GBC in the end. Okay, let's keep on going.
Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, and Iskcon will then effulgently deliver the fallen conditioned jivas for the next 10,000 years.
Now, this is a tough one for a lot of people because they assume your guru dies, you need a replacement guru. That's the way it's always been done. That's what it says in the Gita. There's the Sampradaya. But you have Sampradaya or residents of Krishna Loka. How many residents of Krishna Loka have they made into gurus so far? I don't think they've put none, right? Wouldn't you agree? None?
None what?
No residents of Krishna Loka have been appointed by the GBC to be gurus.
No, none.
And to add icing to the cake, how could the GBC, who are not residents of Krishna Loka, appoint people who are residents of Krishna Loka? That's absurd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it just keeps on going. Okay, is there another posting after that?
Yeah.
Why don't read that one?
Any problem with the accurate analysis above? Get used to the fact that initiation.
Wait. What would you say? And where's Mohit? Is he still with us?
No, he left.
He did.
Yeah, he sent a text. He said he had to go.
Okay. Anybody else here? Except you and me?
Just Vinayak.
And Vinayak, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. And Vinayak, as I understand, can't talk because he's in a business environment.
Yeah.
Working. Okay, keep going.
Get used to the fact that initiations into Iskcon can take place without feeble, unrealized gurus performing the ceremony.
Yes, well, that would mean that if Prabhupada is the Acharya, he's not going to physically perform the Agnihotra, but he can have a what's it called?
Officiating Acharya.
Officiating Acharya performance. Why is that such an impossibility? Considering that, quite frankly, the Iskcon gurus are in reality nothing more than officiating Acharyas. What is an Iskcon guru if he's not an officiating Acharya? he's not a pure devotee. He's supposedly representing Prabhupada. But he goes to the extreme of taking on the karma of his disciple, which is a risky thing to do, right? And then gets all sorts of honor and wealth and whatnot, which is certainly a motivation for a lot of people that want a comfy life. And they don't mind giving the disciples or the initiates a false sense of security, saying, well, you know, you're my disciple, so I will take care of you. As one of our godbrothers from off of the coast of Africa said, Bhagavan said, I will take you back to God. Well, a few years later, he was out having affairs with a series of married women. So how is he going to take him back to Godhead if he's doing that? I contend he took on the karma of too many people. Therefore, he had to live out their karma because he couldn't purify it with his own pure consciousness, which wasn't also not pure. He was a very great devotee. He was a very great, if he had not become a guru, he would have become a great asset to Prabhupada. But he didn't. So he became exfoliated. He thinks he left Iskcon. Rupa,
Yeah.
he thinks he left Iskcon. What actually happened?
Iskcon left him.
Krishna kicked him out. And the miracle is that people are so egocentric that when they do something, they think they did it because of themselves. They don't realize that there are bigger forces than they are behind the scene, making things happen. Right?
Right. Okay, moving on. I request that the term guru be eliminated from all of our discourses.
Yeah, the word guru has come to mean nothing more than mafia boss, capo, king, prince, dictator. More than prince or king, dictator, totalitarian dictator. And people that are attracted to that sort of governance will accept a guru who is not a pure devotee. So I'm suggesting we eliminate the word guru and leave the word acharya, because it would take quite a lot of guts for any of those guys to claim to be acharyas. Okay, go ahead.
Srila Prabhupada is eternal, alive, and quite capable of leading the human race to spiritual perfection over the remaining 10,000 years of the golden age of Kali.
Okay, what would you say about that?
I would say that it's true.
Well, yeah, but I mean, go through it. Just go through it line by line and explain it.
Okay, Srila Prabhupada is eternal, alive, and quite capable of leading the human race to spiritual perfection over the remaining 10,000 years of the golden age of Kali. Well, Prabhupada is transcendental to time and space.
Okay.
So, therefore, he is self-manifest in the world, in his books and in his recordings and in his picture and in his temples.
Okay. So is there any difference between Prabhupada's writing and Prabhupada?
No.
Okay. So he's reasons ill who say Vaishnavas die, because Prabhupada is definitely still living, still and sound.
Yeah.
Okay, go through the rest of the sentence.
Eternal, alive, quite capable of leading the human race to spiritual perfection. Yeah, we just have to follow him.
Yeah, but will he be personally present or just theoretically present?
Personally present.
Yeah. Just like we could say the deity on the altar is not marble, he's Krishna, personally present, right?
Yes.
So why would we say Prabhupada is not personally present? Unless somebody else wants to be a successor without the qualifications, even beginning elementary qualifications.
Yeah, he's present with all qualifications.
Yeah. Now the thing is, someone could say, well, the initiating guru, the initiating acharyas are not, the initiators have the beginning qualifications. They chant their 16 rounds, they do all of that. That's not a qualification for being a guru. That's a qualification for being a Kanistadakari. The qualification for being a guru begins when you're in your rasa with Krishna. Who's on board?
Someone named Edvin.
Welcome. Does Edvin want to say anything?
It says his microphone couldn't connect.
Oh, I see. Well, work on it. Tell him to work on it. We want to hear his voice. Okay, do you think that Rohit left because he wanted to discuss other things and not this?
He said, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam to all assembled devotees. I will have to leave. Thanks a lot for the great association. Giving real thing what is divine grace Prabhupada wanted. Hare Krishna.
Oh, it doesn't sound like that's directly it, but didn't he come on wanting to discuss some things about, oh no, that was Ramachandra was talking about the qualifications of a guru, right? I thought it was Mohit.
No, it was Ramachandra.
Okay, we got it. Okay, so we had to do something.
Oh, speaking of which, he just is back.
Oh, Mohit, Haribol Prabhu.
Oh, Ramachandra.
Oh, Ramachandra's back. Haribol Ramachandra.
Hare Krishna. Yes. So one devotee sent me a question on whatchamacallit, on text. So can I ask that question?
Well, of course, you're
Okay.
the boss.
Okay. So it's saying here, he asked this question. He's saying, so it comes back to the same question, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's declaration that the holy name and Krishna Prema was spread to every town and village by Srila Prabhupada failed. It was checked by Kali Yuga. So he's saying that, I'm not sure what he's exactly saying, but it seems like he's trying to say that because...
Why not read it again? Let's go through it line by line and try to figure it out, because I've got confused too.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. He asked this question a couple of times. I think he has a very weak understanding of Krishna consciousness.
Well, let's not say that about that poor guy. He's probably listening. That's not nice.
No, I know him, so I know him.
Do you know who has a weak understanding of Krishna consciousness?
Me.
No, I have a weak understanding of Krishna consciousness. He has a strong understanding, or he wouldn't be calling into this site.
Okay. So he sent some questions to me, and then I tried to answer it, but he said, why don't you ask this question? I hope he's watching. So
okay, we'll go through it bit by bit.
Yeah. So one comment. He says, "Oh my God, there are so many Prabhupada disciples, but we are introduced to only a few in Iskcon." So that was one comment. He said, "Oh my God."
So let me make a quick response.
Yes, sure.
There are so many devotees at Iskcon, but many of them have become alienated by the fact that they're expected to surrender to unqualified neophytes as gurus. And therefore, it's not easy to encounter them. if everyone were following Prabhupada, you'd meet devotees on the street chanting in this big city. What city is he from?
What
Any way
city
to
he's
know?
from?
Yeah.
He's from my city, Sacramento.
Oh. So if you were from a big city like Sacramento, if the people were not alienated, you would have hundreds of devotees every day on the street in parties chanting. All sorts of college students would join. All sorts of people that were fringies would join. Even some homeless people would cease to be homeless and they would join. You know, people that just didn't know what to do with their lives and became homeless. They could join. And they would be out of the street chanting, not just sitting, eating food and sleeping, but they would be going out of the street chanting. So that's why you don't see that many devotees. So go ahead, next point.
Next point, he says, so can you ask this question in your next podcast? Why did these disciples of Prabhupada left Iskcon?
Why did they, is that the question?
Yeah, then he says, if they saw that things were going wrong and GBC was hijacked and there was self-proclaimed gurus, why didn't they stood up and fought for Prabhupada?
Okay, wait a second. That's a complicated question. There was a question before that, right?
Yes. So he's saying, so can you ask this question in your next podcast? Why did the disciples of Srila Prabhupada left Iskcon?
Okay, that is very simple because the GBC made it impossible for them to stay. They came to join Prabhupada. They wanted Prabhupada's melodies. They wanted to chant Hare Krishna like Prabhupada. They wanted to read unchanged books. They wanted to do everything the way Prabhupada prescribed and live peacefully in the temple. But the GBC came into the temple, took them over, just like a dictatorship, and the temples were no longer independent. The temples could have done fine with just the temple president and the members. And as far as initiations, that was already being done by officiating acharyas, meaning senior Brahmins in the temple, the same ones that worship the deities or perform weddings and stuff like that.
Right.
There was no difficulty there. They left because they sent in a bunch of neophytes to control the senior devotees. And when the senior devotees objected, they made it uncomfortable for them to stay. Go ahead. Next question. Next part of that question.
Yes. Then he says, if they saw that things were going wrong and GBC was hijacked and there were self-proclaimed gurus, why didn't they stood up and fought for Prabhupada?
That is a very wonderful question. It's a very profound question. And it deals with the statements that we were going through just previously, a few minutes ago. The reason they didn't do it is they didn't know it was happening. The direction of management said that temple presidents elect GBC every 3 years for 3-year terms, and every 4 years for 3-year terms?
3-year terms.
Every 3 years for 3-year terms?
Yes.
Okay, so that nobody knew that. The reason they didn't know that is you can ask Rupanuga that question. He had a copy of the direction of management and and I saw it in 1971 because he showed it to me. The direction of management, it gave the exact format as to how Prabhupada wanted the GBC to be formatted, but the GBC declared themselves independent of that document, and it wasn't seen. I knew someone that hadn't seen it until 1979, and that was in Seattle. He was what's his name?
Hari Vilas.
Hari Vilas, yeah. So Hari Vilas didn't see that till 1979 for the first time. And he was a GBC, he was a temple president, he was a very big figure in Iskcon. And he had never seen that document.
Vishwakarma Prabhu also didn't see it.
They didn't even know that rule was there. And after that, they were prevented from doing anything because the GBC, if they tried to do that, the GBC would simply kick them out. Why? Because they could easily be replaced by new devotees that would obey the GBC. Why do you
That's what
keep
they
a
do.
guy that objects? Rameshwar even told me when he became a guru that he initially fought for a week that he didn't want to be a guru. But after he became a guru, he got into it. And he actually took me aside because he and I were confidential friends. He took me aside and said, what I want is that Prabhupada had so many hostile god brothers that were fighting him.
Envious.
What?
Envious.
Envious god brothers. Yes, that were, Prabhupada always talked about his envious god brothers. He said, so many envious god brothers that were slowing him down. I would like it that 95% of my god brothers would leave the movement so that I will not have any envious god brothers. Meaning that the only people left would be his disciples.
Yeah.
In the Los Angeles area, at least. He actually told that to me on the lawn. I could point to the exact blade of grass that he was standing on.
So his next question is, another question is that if Iskcon has failed in its mission, then that means Prabhupada wasn't intelligent enough or capable of carrying out the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he asked a follow-up.
That's a very interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's really the main question is, who is more smart and spiritually intelligent and powerful? The unelected murderous GBC who poisoned Prabhupada? Or Prabhupada, who is directly sent by Krishna Loka, from Krishna Loka by Lord Krishna, to be the Acharya of Iskcon that was also created by Lord Chaitanya, by Krishna and Krishna Loka. So who is more powerful, Prabhupada or the GBC? And you can say, well, the GBC were able to poison Prabhupada and get him out of the way and take over, so probably they're more powerful. But if they're more powerful, how was Prabhupada able to, in a few years, like on the fingers of one hand, able to spread Krishna consciousness globally? And the GBC cannot even keep Krishna consciousness under control for another 5 years. No, they're not powerful. They were corrupt and wicked. But how were they able to defeat Prabhupada? Or did they defeat Prabhupada? They haven't defeated Prabhupada. We're talking about 52 years out of 10,000 years. Just to make it more reasonable for little brain people like you and me, supposing we say 52 years out of 200 years. How big a chunk is 52 years out of 200 years?
Very insignificant.
Yeah, it's just a fraction. Roughly 10%.
No, 25%.
Out of 52 years is 4 into 200.
25%, about 20. Yeah. 20,
okay, well,
25.
whatever. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about 500 years, 5,000 years. What percentage is it of 5,000 years? 52 years.
Yeah.
Hardly
so then he's asking more questions. So
okay, well, let's finish this question. Can you repeat the last part of this question again?
Another question is that Iskcon has failed.
Not another question. How about the one we were talking about? We didn't finish answering it.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Another question is that if Iskcon has failed in its mission, then that means Prabhupada wasn't intelligent enough or capable of carrying out the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what does he mean by Prabhupada has failed? Prabhupada failed in... Why is he saying this?
Iskcon is no longer going on in Prabhupada's name. It's going on in the Bogus Guru's name, going under the GBC name. Just like when a man is a healthy athlete and he gets a 50-pound tumor in his belly, you can say he's failed.
Right.
He's failed because he's now dying of a 52-pound tumor. Well, supposing you take that tumor out and heal the athlete, then he hasn't failed. The tumor is what failed. And if you're going to say Prabhupada failed, if you kidnap the king and you say there's no king, no, there's a king. He's been kidnapped.
Right.
He's been taken away. He's been hidden in a cave. But the king exists. He's not dead. And how do we know Prabhupada's not dead? Well, poisoned or not, Prabhupada is a pure devotee. That means he's eternal. And if he's eternal, and Krishna is eternal, Lord Chaitanya is eternal,
and you're also eternal.
So we're dealing with an eternal phenomenon that the GBC has given their life's breath to try. It's like taking a child that's crying and trying to smother it under a blanket to strangle it to death. They're trying to take the crying child, the Hare Krishna child, and smother it and strangle it and suffocate it. But will they succeed? No, the child is eternal. The stranglers are not.
Right.
Okay, so what's the end of that question again?
So it's saying that Prabhupada wasn't intelligent enough or capable of carrying out the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's pretty clear that
Srila Prabhupada was so incredibly intelligent that he realized that what Krishna started through him is not going to vanish because a bunch of hooligans come along and try to strangle the crying child.
Right.
They're not going to take the little baby and strangle it and succeed, because Iskcon is going to go on because it was created by Krishna. Who has failed and who has no potency? The GVC. Oh, they have so much potency, they're controlling everything. Oh yeah, well, they may be controlling your mind, sir. You may believe that they're in control because you accept that they're controlling you, but they don't control me. They don't control Ramachandra. They don't control Rupa Manjari. They're not controlling everybody.
Yeah, they're just controlling the people who seemingly think they're being controlled.
Yeah, that's what the people Rameshwar is talking about. I want 95% of my governors to leave the movement so that everybody will follow me, will not have any question of following me.
Try. Okay, so before he ends it, so the question arises, why didn't Prabhupada make everything clear before leaving? He should have written down how things will run after he is not physically present.
He wrote how things should be run before he was gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why does he have to write it down again?
Yeah, I think...
Does that mean because we're stupid? Or is he trying to say that Prabhupada might be stupid?
No, that's
if
why
Prabhupada
I said...
already wrote it, all you do is you go back and obey it. What's the difficult part? Why do you have to write it down again? And if you write it down again, how about again and again and again every 10 years?
Yeah. This guy's been brainwashed by the local Iskcon crowd, or whoever he's following.
Whatever he's brainwashed, he's had some intelligence because he's trying to find out what really,
it's not so very.
Trying to find out what really happened. He's trying to figure out.
He has come to the right place.
Was Prabhupada stupid or something? He's saying that to make us answer his question. I doubt it that he believes that, or if he believes that, I doubt if he believes it very deeply.
Yeah. Okay. Then he says, can you ask these two questions in your next meeting and send me a link? I would like to remain anonymous. You can mention one of the Iskcon Sacramento devotee asked these two questions. So there you go.
Okay. So he can remain anonymous. Why? Because the GBC might make him irrelevant.
He's a big guy. He's an easy target. He can't run too fast.
You know who you know who it is?
Yeah, I know who it is.
You don't have to tell me.
No, I know.
But
anyways,
is he against Prabhupada? From what you know of him,
he's a disciple of one of these clowns. So so I'm not sure is he really against.
Is he a disciple of the clown with the big red nose, or the funny little hat, or what about the one with the big floppy shoes? Which clown is he a disciple of?
I don't want to mention it, but it will. Anyways,
No,
yeah.
no, it's confidential. If he wants to be confidential, we
Yeah.
respect that. Certainly online, we are not going to expose somebody who says he wants to be kept confidential.
Yeah. So I hope this is, gives him some insight, and maybe one day he can join live. I encourage him to join live because he seems like an intelligent guy.
Well,
But,
does
his intelligence
he hold
is
an
misdirected.
important position amongst the
No,
devotees?
he doesn't. He doesn't hold any position amongst the devotees. No.
So why does he want to be confidential?
I don't know, because he's an Indian and thinks like a Hindu. That's why, everything is very bodily associated when we were talking.
Oh, I see. So maybe he's in conversation with Hindus who are saying what he's saying, and he's expressing that to us, so that we will give him information by which he can answer the Hindus that are questioning Prabhupada's intelligence, sanity, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or if Prabhupada wanted that, why didn't he do more to make it happen? But in finality, if I may say, with Prabhupada being the Acharya, why did Prabhupada allow the GBC to essentially run roughshod over his orders? It's a big question, right? And that's because that's the only way they would agree to continue to lead the movement. But they made the temples all into one organization that later on got sued for millions of dollars. That wouldn't have if they'd been individual temples. Yes. And he also made the unelected GBC became global 100 never elected people. Yes. But they opened a lot of temples during that time. They did a lot of service. They printed a lot of books. Well, a lot of those books were changed, but the unchanged books still exist. So the thing is, Prabhupada used them for what he could. And if a person's going to murder you, can you imagine? Unless we think Prabhupada is not intelligent, but supposing we know that Prabhupada is supremely intelligent, he said, these guys here, I think you refer to them as a sinister movement within our society. They're going to come, they're going to take over the movement, and then they're going to poison you to death, or they're going to kill you, and then they're going to declare themselves gurus. And of course, what Prabhupada could easily say it, if somebody told him that, is, what else is new? Isn't that the way it always happens in human society?
We have 1 minute to go, everyone.
All right.
1 more minute. So the last thing I wanted to say on that is that Prabhupada knew very well what was going on. He used them as best he could. Then he left us enough original instructions, enough anecdotal comments that he made about things that were being used against him. He said, kill guru, become guru. That should be a slight hint. And then all sorts of things he used. He used all sorts of things to, he used all sorts of things to make it clear what was happening. And then with the July 9th letter, he didn't sign it, Tamal signed it, changed the name from officiating acharyas to Ritviks, all of that, and then Prabhupada signed on the side showing that he wasn't the author. I mean, and that created the whole crazy Ritvik movement, which was well-intentioned but didn't accomplish anything in reality. It accomplished doubt, but the thing is that now we have to rectify that Prabhupada isn't dead and he's still the Acharya of Iskcon, and that everything people said on both sides of the issue are wrong, and the Ritviks and the so-called Ritviks and the Guru and the GBC are both hungry people demanding an inheritance from their dead father. That's all they are.
All right, it's time to wrap it up.
Alice in Alice in Wonderland at the end was being threatened with her life by the King of Hearts and the Queen of Spades and all of that. And then she looked at them and said, wait a minute, you're just a house of cards. You're just a pack of cards. When she said that, they went brrr on the ground. So what do I say to the GBC and the Riffics and all of that stuff? You're just a pack of cards. Brrr. Let's get back to Prabhupada.
All right, Haribol.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much for joining.
So Ramachandra, are you on the road?
Oh, he left.
Okay.
All right.
Anyhow, that was pretty interesting. You did a great job, by the way.
Thank you.